We're talking the Pittsburgh Panthers today on Sharpen the Point. Last season ended up 7-6, but they started 7-0, which was really unexpected, and equally as unexpected was the 0-6 finish with a loss in the Detroit Bowl game against Toledo. Head coach Pat Narduzzi enters his 11th season. Cade Bell, he enters his second season as the offensive coordinator, and he was a revelation for this offense, just bringing it along with him from Western Carolina, and he brought some intriguing pieces that ended up playing extremely well. Quarterback Eli Holstein, he was a really pleasant surprise last season as a good fit for the innovative offense that Bell brought with him. Before he got injured late in the year, Holstein did a great job of getting the ball into the hands of his playmakers, routinely racking up 300-yard, 3-touchdown games early in the season, although the schedule was somewhat soft and got difficult towards the end. The use of his legs was the biggest shock for me, as I would not have anticipated him clearing the 50-yard mark on 3 different occasions rushing. He returns, and he's going to look to again lead this offense with the hope that he can sustain the early season production for the entire year this time around. Nate Yarnell, he played most of the final 3 games of the season. He performed admirably in 2 of the 3, showing it may be more about the offense itself than the quarterback who's operating it. He's going to head to Texas State, leaving what I would expect to be Cole Gonzalez as the primary backup. Gonzalez comes from Western Carolina. He's operated in this system under Bell previously, which is really going to help him acclimate pretty quickly. Running back wise, it's the Desmond Reed show. He was nothing short of a sensation, and he was really the talk of college football earlier last year, routinely making highlight plays in every facet of the game. He could run, he could catch, he returned kicks to the house at any given time, with his speed and agility being showcased. Reed really seized the opportunity that was provided to him when Rodney Hammond could not get on the field, and he's going to look to build upon it this year. I was really surprised by the workload he was able to handle last year, given his size at 5'8", 175, with double-digit carries in every game, culminating in that 33-carry bowl game where they really tried to ride him to a win, although coming up short. The 52 catches for Reed they were particularly impressive as he routinely was schemed into open space, which is where he operates his best. He's going to really hope to improve upon the 1,500-yard, 9-touchdown season he had while trying to hit the 1K yard mark on the ground this year to go along with that impressive receiving production. Derek Davis and Jules Goff will be the primary backups, but no other back last year had more than 27 carries on the season. I expect these guys to rotate in to keep Reed fresh for the entire year, but their workload is still going to be extremely limited. This is going to be the Reed show so long as he can remain healthy. Pass catcher wise, the targets were really evenly distributed between Konata Mumpfield, Raphael Williams, and Kenny Johnson, with each receiving over 70, making it difficult to predict who would be the primary target on any given week. Not great for us for fantasy purposes, but at the same time, good for them because then opposing teams can't key on one guy. Mumpfield is now going to depart for the NFL, while the other 2 are going to return to what should be similar, if not somewhat expanded roles as the top 2 options on the offense. Johnson's going to operate on the outside as one of their bigger receivers, with Williams really locked into that slot role as a shifty guy who's good at finding open space and creating yards after the catch. To me, Johnson looks like he's going to be the go-to guy in the room, but how much he separates from anybody is going to be determined as they do like to spread the ball around in this Bell offense. Sincere Lee is slotted into that 3 spot. He really operated as the 4 last year, but they do have 2 transfers vying to get into the rotation as well, with Blue Hicks from Louisville and Deuce Spann from Florida State coming in. Spann's an interesting option for them as his size at 6'4" is unique to the room, which is filled with mostly 5'10" to 6 foot tall guys. But the fact that he struggled to see the field on a bad FSU, wide receiver room says all you need to know about Spann there. Tight end Gavin Bartholomew, he was an underrated part of the offense, but a steady presence that got involved routinely with all the eye candy that was going on with the wide receivers and Reed out of the backfield. He departs, but everyone behind him is going to return, and the staff really likes what they have in Jake Overman. He's going to take over that role with the chance to be even more involved than Bartholomew was, as Overman's a good pass catcher. Offensive line wise, for how productive the offense was and the explosive plays they continually made, the line was just not good enough. They routinely forced Reed to make defenders miss to get yards and then allowed too much pressure on the quarterbacks overall. They do return some talent, though, with Lyndon Cooper, B.J. Williams, and Ryan Baer, while adding to the unit with 3 transfers that could make an impact right away. Kendall Stanley stands out. He comes from Charlotte. He looks like an impact starter at tackle. Keith Gouveia, he comes over from Richmond, and Jeff Percy from Michigan. They could be in the mix as well. Each of those guys has a decent amount of starts under their belt and playing time in Percy's case. They really needed upgrades and more cohesion. And then with a year under their belt and the portal additions, the hope really will be is that it's an improved unit. Defensive line wise, defense did a great job of getting the quarterback, but it was the linebackers who got home more than the actual line of scrimmage. They still did get plenty of pressure though. Nate Matlock and Jimmy Scott were the main guys wreaking havoc along the line with 11 sacks and 45 pressures combined. Matlock is gone, but Scott's going to return to anchor the unit with Isaiah Neal, Nick James, and Sean Fitzsimmons being the key contributors in the middle. Matlock is going to look to be replaced by some of the transfer talent, though, on the edge. Blaine Spires from Utah State, Joey Zielinski from Eastern Michigan, and Jaden Moore out of Oregon were brought in to add depth and talent off the edge. Spires and Zielinski, they each played a good bit of ball at their previous stops. And Moore, while he didn't play a lot at Oregon, his pass rush win rates were through the roof when he was on the field and comparable to some of the top pass rushers in the Big Ten, albeit in a small sample size. He could really be this year's breakout star for this unit. Linebacker-wise, the linebacker core played a massive role in the success of the defense had a year ago as they were making plays all over the field and consistently in the opposing backfield being disrupted. They lose Brandon George, but overall this unit is still one of the better ones in the conference. Returners Kyle Louis and Rasheem Biles, they combined for 13 sacks and were flat-out playmakers in their breakout seasons. They're going to look to maintain that dominance and hopefully build upon it. Braylon Lovelace should play in between those two guys, and while playing limited snaps, he clearly made an impact on the field, showing that George really is not going to be missed by bringing in Lovelace. Depth is a concern behind them given the relative lack of experience and youth, but like the emergence of Louis and Biles, it would not shock me for others to step up. Looking at some of the talent in the room, Jaden Bonsu, he comes over from Ohio State. He's one of the depth guys to keep an eye on as he transitions from being a big safety to a more hybrid role. The staff is very high on him with his burst and processing capabilities standing out immediately to them in that spring practice once he showed up. In the secondary, it was a clear weakness of the defense last year. It got exposed when you look at the raw data overall, but the stats don't paint the entire picture, as the offense was so effective that it forced other teams to abandon the run and look to pass to keep up with them. On a per-pass basis, they weren't nearly as bad as the raw data projects them to be. They should have been better given the amount of pressure that the front seven was able to create, though. The Syracuse game with 5 interceptions was a perfect example of the aggressive style of play, showing what can happen if it goes right for the secondary. The loss of Donovan McMillan at safety, it's going to be a tough one to swallow as he seemingly was the one cleaning up the back end and making 115 tackles last year. One of Cruz Brookins or Kavir Baines Marquez, he comes over from UC Davis, are likely to fill that void, but they're going to need others to pick up the slack in replacing McMillan's production. Brookins has shown himself to be particularly adept at creating takeaways in the spring and the fall last year, as his helmet, they give out helmet stickers for takeaways, and they were always filled with them during practice. Javon McIntyre, he's likely to be leaned on more as a elder statesman at safety to help those guys out. And then looking at the corner spots, Rashad Battle and Timon Lynham, they should be the starters at corner with good strength, length, and range. They're very tall, rangy guys. They're good. With Shadarian Harrison looking to be the primary backup. They're going to need to have short memories on that outside, though, as they will consistently play out on an island and get beat at times. So they're going to have to be able to forget it and go on to the next play. It's just kind of the nature of the beast in this system. They're going to sell out, try to get in those negative plays, make the quarterback get the ball out quick. But if they get beat, it can go a long way. Harrison, in particular, is going to be somebody that he's going to move into a top role very soon. So he's a talented young kid looking to move up. So if either one of the top two goes down, Harrison is going to step right in. Looking at the schedule and outlook for this year, the offense needs to and should take another step forward with so many returning pieces going into year 2 of this offense being installed. And sustaining quality production and health for their pieces are going to be key because they're not extremely deep at any of the top positions. Overall, for the defense to be at its best, they need the front four to create pressure to help take away a little bit of the island nature of the back end instead of being so reliant on the linebackers to do so. Schedule: Duquesne, win. Central Michigan, win. It started out real nice. At West Virginia. It's a rivalry game, we know that, but it's better to get these guys early with Rich Rod coming in, and especially with all the turnover they have. They're going to take a little bit to gel. I think that's a win. You get in right away. Louisville is a coin flip to an extent because it's at home, but I would lean loss. I think Louisville is one of the top 3 to 4 most talented teams in the ACC. They're going to be battling to make the conference title game. Boston College, win. At Florida State. Who knows how motivated Florida State's going to be at Game 6? I mean, that's crazy to say, but at this point, who knows? They really quit on that team last year. They could quit again this year. I say that's a coin flip, but man, they were something last year. At Syracuse, that's a tough place to play in the Dome there, but you got to lean on a win there. You believe you can take care of business with all the turnover they have on that offense. NC State, I think they're very improved. I think that's a coin flip game. They're a talented team. They're going to keep getting better. At Stanford, win. They're awful. Notre Dame, I would say that's a loss. Notre Dame is a very good team. At Georgia Tech, I think that's a coin flip. I think that's a very good roster returning there. I would lean loss because I think Georgia Tech is an extremely good team. And Miami, I'm going to lean loss, although they have their own demons. Keeping Desmond Reed healthy for the whole season is going to be paramount for how successful they can be. The schedule's not easy on the back end with 3 of their 4 toughest opponents finishing off that schedule. The expectation should be a minimum of 7 wins with the upside for 9 in play. Improving on last season's win total while taking down one of Louisville, Notre Dame, or Miami would really qualify as an extremely successful season.